Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our viewers and listeners all around the world, and welcome to the second session of the CharIN Tuesday Tech and Policy Triplet titled The European V2G Story, a Comprehensive Approach for Implementation. First off, apologies for the slight delay. We've had some technical difficulties, and Saki from the European Commission will join us shortly, but we're here with Davide. However, before starting this session today, we're going, from CharIN side, we see that these developments in V2G regularly attract global attention, both from a policy and implementation outlook side. Hence, with CharIN's global presence, we see that this is an opportune moment for our global audience to explore the European current state of affairs, the importance of V2G in the transition to electrification, the comprehensive EU approach to implement V2G, as well as expectations, bottlenecks, and requirements. However, before diving in to today's session, just two very brief points of order. Firstly, regarding Q&A, you will be able to put your questions into the chat box, and we will see to address them during the session. So please feel as included as you wish. And secondly, you will be able to see the recording after the session. So if you missed something, you can watch it again on YouTube, or indeed get in touch with every person on the panel. So now let me introduce our panelists with a direct question. Davide here is Head of Global Product Management and Energy Services and Head of Small Asset Flexibility at NLX. Davide also serves as the speaker for the Grid Integration and Energy Focus Group at CharIN. So a big welcome and thank you for joining today's session.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, Davide. My first question to you, Davide, is what are the key building blocks of V2G from the industry perspective?
I think that one for sure is the technology. That is the fundamental part to enable it, where we still have some piece to build, and maybe after we can speak about it. Second is regulation, different regulation. We need to make a V2G happen. For sure, the grid code, the regulation is one of the key pieces, and very important, all the amendment at European level that they are building to improve and speed up this. But also regulation in terms of market design, in terms of value. No, we need some value to extract on V2G, so we need a good rules to enable this value. Otherwise, it's just a technical pilot. It is not a business to scale. And last one, connected to regulation, but is also technical, the data, data access and share. So now and how different bodies need to share this, because what is complex in V2G is that we need car manufacturing industry, we have charger manufacturing industry, we have a software industry, we have utility, we have aggregator, we have DSO, TSO, so we have a lot of partners that need to share the data, where in the past these players never speak digitally and automatically. So this is for sure is one key piece.
Thank you, Davide. And next question, we'll let the viewers know here that in contact with Saki to join the panel still, having a little technical issue there. But I guess maybe from your view on this, Davide, but what do you see the state of affairs in V2G development and the rollout in the EU currently?
So it depends. No, if we see from a technology perspective, okay, maybe we are advanced, but the true story is that we still are in an early stage period of V2G, no? Because we have a good wave when CHAdeMO was the standard, no? Because CHAdeMO was built to have also bidirectional capability, and we saw in the past a lot of pilot on Nissan Leaf, etc. But then now that all the industry moved to the CCS, where the bidirectional capability arrives sometimes ago, short times ago, we still have just small pieces on the market. at the end, what we see on the market officially from I would say product perspective is just a Renault offer in France with the Renault 5 and their box, but it's a particular offer, no, because it's a turnkey offer that when the driver need to buy the Renault 5, buy the charger, subscribe the Renault partner utility tariff, etc., etc. So it's for sure a good example because at least people start to understand V2G, but it's still at the early stage. Then there are just pilot in the markets. Majority are technical pilot. Yes, so I think that we still need to have time from the OEM car manufacturing industry to deploy V2G vehicle, and then to make the customer start to adopt the V2G solution. We have Saki, no?
Sorry, it's very unclear to me. It's 1 second. I think Saki is joining, but must need to rename.
Good.
Just 1 moment. Hi, Saki, do you hear us? Are you with us today?
Yeah, if the system lets me, I'm here with you.
Yes. It seems that Saki has joined with my name as his username, which is very odd. So Saki, maybe if you could please rename yourself to not cause confusion.
You hacked the service.
We do not want to think that I am, in the commission or 2 roles at once here.
Absolutely, no problem.
Yes, and apologies to everyone for the delay in Saki joining today. It's we've recently moved over to Zoom, so there have been some technical hiccups, let us say. But on that note, let me introduce Saki to everyone, and I'll start to ask you a question as well. But firstly, for those eagle-eyed viewers, you may recognize Saki from a previous CharIN Tuesday. He is a veteran here of us, having joined previously when we explored MCS and the Global Corporation on Standards. So on that note, a big welcome back and thank you for joining today's session. Saki is a policy and data officer on alternative fuels infrastructure at the European Commission, namely at DG Move. So Saki, my opening question to you is, what is the political mindset and policy approach to V2G? And to set the scene a bit more, what is the significance of V2G for the EU and where does the motivation come from?
Thank you, Guy, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on what part of the world you are. So indeed, it's a pleasure to be once more with you here in the CharIN Tuesdays. And I see that your first question, Guy, is directly targeting the center of our work in the Commission. So perhaps a positive message. I believe that the political mindset right now it's very strong in the EU, and it is shaped by 2 factors. First, V2G and smart charging as a whole is seen as a key pillar for energy system decarbonization. So this is a central element of all impact assessments of all legislation that the EU is making right now related to energy aspects. And the second, that it's very important, and we have a good example that happened in the EU a few days ago. It relates to grid flexibility and resilience. And we saw what happened a few days ago in Spain, where there was a blackout. Of course, the root causes are still under investigation, but it's clear that V2G and more generally smart charging are a solution, right? And this is the part of overall clean energy transition that the EU is putting in place with different legislations, different standards and actions to address interoperability gaps. And overall, I reiterate, I believe the mindset is positive, and we are going in the right direction with all the challenges, of course, that we have in the path.
Thank you, Saki. It's very interesting that, especially also being Portuguese myself, the blackout was an interesting one last week. But I guess having already asked David this question, we've already or asked the key building blocks of V2G from the industry side. So what is the policy perspective on what are the building blocks here? Miyazaki.
It's for me. Okay, so yeah, going next. So building blocks, there are several, and we can enumerate perhaps key that are very important, at least from us, from the legislator side, that we could expand a bit more. So the first, of course, is the regulatory, the policy framework. That's our responsibility. And in this respect, in the EU, we can name a few pieces that are key. One is the electricity market design, right? That it shapes a little bit the legal recognition of EVs as flexible assets with rights and also enabling factors to participate actively in the energy markets and supporting balancing markets and flexibility schemes. So this is a key element. But also as part of the regulatory framework, it's important for us other elements like the grid codes and the network access rules that we know that is a hot topic right now, and another enabling factor. Also in work cooperation with DSOs and TSOs in order to update their technical requirements to allow EVs to fit electricity back into the grid efficiently. And in addition to that, also from the regulatory side, we believe that it's important to have clear rules on access to data, and also importantly, consent and incentives to the end user, because at the end of the day, we believe that if we don't have robust use cases, mature use cases that create incentives to the end users, this is not going to work, because there is not going to be a simple end user, or either if we talk about a fleet operator or a business, is not going to provide their battery of their assets, of their EV assets, just for the sake of doing it, but they are expecting some sort of reward, whatever that may be. And we might discuss that a bit later. But overall, the regulatory framework is a key pillar, and a couple more of them that we believe that are very important, and to name a second one are technical standards and interoperability. This is very important for us. You all very well know that in Europe, we are now establishing a mandate from 2027 for ISO 15118 Part 20. We know that it may be a bit challenging, but this has to come, and we are now addressing the infrastructure side, both publicly and private infrastructure. We want infrastructure to be interoperable. And now we need to see also how we parallelize this mandate for the vehicles, which is our point of concern right now, in order to ensure that we have parallel mandates between infrastructure and vehicles, because we are seeing that the situation, particularly in the vehicle market, is a bit different right now, with different vehicles coming to the market with some intermediate solutions, proprietary solutions, etc. So it's very important that we equalize the legislative framework in that side. And the third one, and perhaps it's a good point to stop, is the overall business models, right? Once we have a standard, we have a regulatory framework. At the end of the day, the market needs to deliver as well, and for that we will come to the commercial phase, so end users can benefit of them and can start to implement them. So I believe these are three key elements that are a priority right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Saki. And these are three key elements which we're looking to discuss further in today's session. But quickly moving to Davide here, and Saki, you've already touched upon the importance of the decarbonization strategy, or that's highlighted already. But Davide, what concrete contributions do you see V2G making to the EU's broader decarbonization strategy, particularly in ensuring that vehicle electrification supports rather than strains the energy system?
Yeah, so for sure, no, everyone in the industry understands the future value of V2G, no? Because the reality is that will be a game changer, no? We will have almost to every home, maybe 20 years, but in every home, tens of kilowatt hour battery available, maybe 90% usable. So we will have a lot of power and energy that we can use to sustain the grids. I would say in particular condition, like for example, extreme event of the last weeks in Spain, but also I would say more day by day ancillary services support, in which V2G can really be the game changer. It's not seems smoke selling, a little bit when we talk in that way, but it's the reality. We will have a huge batteries everywhere, and if you think also about heavy duty vehicle. There are some particular use case that will be incredible in terms of also fleet management. See, public transportation. We'll have 300 kilowatt hour battery that normally during the night are completely stopped, and you can use to do whatever you want. But also waste management. When we will electrify this part of transportation, it's still are vehicles that are used maybe 4 or 5 hours per day. And if we electrify this and it will be V2G, will be game changer. This is why also now in the grid integration and energy, together with the CharIN, we are discussing, especially now, heavy duty vehicle, because what we want is that in passenger vehicle, we run to have V2G, as industry. Now we have the standard, we have everything. So for heavy duty vehicle, that the electrification is just started, maybe we can, try to be bi-directional at the beginning, maybe also commission can help on that, but we'd be stupid to not have it, stupid for the entire industry, for the end customer, for the car manufacturer that is selling another value to the customer, etc., etc. So yes, for sure we'll get a game changer. We need to arrive to that, but yes, there will be a huge opportunity.
Thank you, Davide. I guess, Saki, any reactions to that, or how do you view the V2G's broader decarbonization strategy?
Yeah, perhaps to complement what David said, and from the Commission side, what we are trying to do is to establish a so-called capability-driven approach. What does it mean? That we want that infrastructure, and you can see that very clearly expressed in the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation, that we want infrastructure to be smart charging ready or capable of. And on that basis, indeed, the hardware and the software shall be equipped with the relevant standards and shall be manufactured already and installed, thinking on these flexibility solutions that we want to bring. But indeed, that's a little bit our to-do list. But indeed, later we expect from Davide and Enel and the market and all the other stakeholders indeed to bring the use cases, and that's where we believe that it's going to be the big chunk of the work in the next couple of years for sure.
And I guess, Saki, still on you, but the next chunk of the work you say. So what is the state of affairs right now in the development and rollout, or how do you view it right now?
Well, to be honest, right now it's of course a bit uncertain and chaotic, which is normal in emerging markets, emerging solutions, and the development more generally of new technological solutions, which is what we are seeing now. A lot of things are going on. So on the one side, we are seeing that even the own manufacturers of recharging equipment, and when we talk about the smart charging and V2G, we need to differentiate about publicly accessible and private recharging, because when we talk about the smart charging, we talk about completely different flexibility use cases and applications. So this also implies that right now we are seeing operators, and we had a lot of discussions as part of our new regulation on the prescription of technical standards like ISO 15118, the importance also for manufacturers and operators to understand what are the requirements that their hardware and their software needs in order to deliver these smart and V2G services. So we believe that little by little now, and with our 2027 deadline and onwards, because we will have additional use cases and testing, etc., coming. So we will have a clear path for the manufacturer side. But also we are seeing, and we are starting to see some commercial offering and some business models that are emerging in terms of the overall set of roles that the different market actors are playing here. And the different market actors are expected to play to enable these use cases. And we see that we need a bit of time, of course, both the market and us as regulators to understand how this will be shaped. So this is a little bit what we are saying, a lot of movement, a lot of discussions, and a lot of things to be settled down. But as I said, we see also this positive at the end of the day are new solutions that are being developed today, and I think we should a little bit try to catch the tide and navigate it and surf it, because it's at the end the only way to accompany these transitions.
I hear Saki very bad. I don't know if it's my problem.
Saki was frozen for a second on my end as well, I will say, but you seem to be okay now.
Okay.
But Davide, what do you see are the main barriers to achieving integration at scale? And I mean, I don't know, I think about how electric vehicles can serve as the mobile distributed energy resources, and that's crucial for cost-effective
Sorry,
transition.
Guillermo, I have problem on sound, only on sound. So let me reconnect because maybe it's a Zoom problem. Okay, I will reconnect in 1 second.
Okay. It's a big technical issues today, but then Saki, I guess my question to you, and you talked about regulation there, but how can the EU legislative frameworks that are out there, how are they contributing to removing obstacles that can help accelerate the V2G deployment? And also, I guess, maybe even looking at the recent simplification packages, or how can that go hand in hand to ensure the rapid deployment and use of V2G?
Yeah, so indeed, maybe we need to start for the regulations that we already have in place. And for that, we have 3 key elements: the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, which is AFIR. We also have the Renewable Energy Directive, the third version of it. And we also have the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive, targeting, in this case, the private charging infrastructure. That the 3 of them, we believe that they already play a key role in addressing the challenges and support the scaling up of smart charging and V2G ready infrastructure. And there, indeed, we are talking also always about closing technical interoperability gaps, reaching market maturity, and addressing overall end user, but also companies' concerns in terms of deployment of this technology. So we are in an implementation phase, as already stated many times at the political level. This Commission mandate is about implementation, and it also in the smart charging and V2G domain, we have a very key example of simplification that relates to double taxation, right? So we know that when electricity is fed back into the grid from EVs, when it is charged but also discharged back to the grid, is double tax. So this is something that needs to be fixed. The thing is that taxation, to some extent, is also under the control of specific rules by member states, not necessarily at the European level. So we need indeed to explore how, in the context of the Energy Taxation Directive, but also member states, how we can introduce perhaps explicit tax exemptions or reductions for electricity discharged from EVs as part of V2G services, right? I think that's something that everyone agrees on the market, but indeed we need to see how to execute that quickly to also support the development of new business models in this respect. So this is, I think, a priority, and that's something that needs to be worked out even at the European and or national level. Yeah.
Saki, and welcome back, Davide.
Yeah, sorry. Now it seems that Zoom work again.
It's a big technical issue there, it seems. But Davide, what I've just asked Saki, and also to ask you, what do you see are main barriers to the integration or the use or the deployment of V2G? Namely, we talked about the framework that exists and what is coming up, but what is the industry view that are the main barriers right now?
At the beginning, I said that what other key building block is technology, meaning that we need a vehicle that use interoperable standard, available, I would say, scalable. Is not the case. So for sure, this is the first things that is a barrier, because we are talking V2G, but if we don't have a vehicle that customer can buy and use in a V2G environment, we don't have anything. I heard also Saki said about regulation, double taxation, the usual point that in V2G is listed in the blocker, for sure. I would say double taxation is a point, but is the point because at the end, is just again in the business model and the value that the market can we can extract, no, in terms of V2G. So it's just in the business case. If we have the taxation, but if the business case is good enough to sustain this, maybe it's a priority two problem. Then double taxation means a lot of things, no? Because in the taxation we have a lot of things. We have also, for example, the grid cost, no? The usage of the distribution grid that maybe DSO, but also my cousin in Enel DSO said, okay, but you are still using the cable, no? Also to charge and discharge. So at the end, the fees based on that. So we have different position on that. And also before we talk about the data, no? We still need an ecosystem of interoperable data that is shared between parties. And there are some of those data that are very, complex in terms of sharing, also from a technology point of view. For example, there were last year the initiative called Coalition of Willingness, kick-offed from the German government, that is very focused on data. There are a lot of data that is not usually shared, like all the tariff information from the user, the electricity tariff information, the schema of the tariff is something that normally is not shared in a proper data sharing infrastructure. So still is for me a problem to have interoperable services. And that last one, again, we need, guys, value from the market, meaning that we have we need a tool in terms of flexibility to extract value that can be implicit flexibility tool like dynamic tariff or similar price profile, or can be explicit flexibility ancillary services, but is still a long journey, because the rules is complex. There are a lot of different ancillary services, not all fit with the V2G. So for me, again, technology, data, regulation, and value, market design value is the barrier that we have.
Thank you, Davide. And I think you make a very good point there about the data access. And I think the question for you, Saki, is on this. It's in terms of regulation, or where is the status of these data access, and how is the Commission helping to, bring this data together? I know there's in development, the data spaces and the Common European Access Point, but what is the current status of that and the long-term objectives of this in terms of data sharing, data access?
Yeah, that's a good question. And indeed, I will try to provide a bit of an overview of the key initiatives, what the Commission is doing right now. But I'd like to go back and building also on what David mentioned and following on the data, the importance and the concept, right? Why do we see important data, and also why sometimes it's not working in some of the discussions we are seeing among industry stakeholders and also with the Commission in the expert groups, and what we are trying to do right now. Because sometimes we talk about data, and indeed several initiatives, not only in Europe, around the world, they have tried to identify concrete data types and streamline those, and also identify and promote access to in-vehicle data in order to facilitate the access to this data. But what we saw is that while this is, of course, a key element, the fuel, basically, data is the fuel to enable these business cases, we were missing both industry and also with policymakers a clear understanding of what are the use cases, what are the flexibility services we want to make happen, and where do they apply, to public recharging, to private recharging, to fleet operators, to individual users with their own EV that drive from work to home. So we were trying to address a little bit the end part, one of the end parts of the story, but we were missing the core. What are the clear understanding and agreement at international European level on what are the clear use cases and the associated business models, and later how we could fit these business models and enable them based on concrete data that is needed when we talk about tariff data, right, on thousands of other data types that may be needed in this context. So with that at hand, how do we address that from the EU side? So right now we are working also in our expert group, the Sustainable Transport Forum, David and you know very well, also others that are here in the room, also with colleagues of the energy side now, with DSOs, TSOs, with the whole grid system integration, on defining these use cases, these also business models eventually, but having a foundation for those. And on that basis, identify the concrete data types and eventually the standards that, or APIs, or standardized APIs, however you want to call it or do it, that will facilitate the access to this data. So this is for us the core, the business, core policy business that we are trying to fix right now. And later on, and this is also a bit complicated, what is the policy landscape to address this, right? So you all know that in the EU we have the so-called Data Act, which is the horizontal piece of legislation that regulates the access to data. In addition to this, we also have sectoral legislation, like the Renewable Energy Directive, that Article 20, you very well know, that specifies certain data types for vehicle manufacturers. So with this context, we are now exploring also, and particularly with the application of the Data Act, in order to provide further guidance and continuing the discussion with the industry, but also with the STF, D4E, and everyone in the industry to have these clear use cases agreed based on clear definitions, etc., where we could provide more clarity and certainty on what are the concrete data types that are needed. And only then, I believe that the legislator, in this case, the EU regulator, would be able to perhaps go beyond and prescribe in a more mandatory manner the availability of this data, right? So this is a little bit the situation.
Thank you, Saki. I think it's a similar question to you, David, or anything you'd like to add or react to what Saki just commented.
Meaning that now in some table we are also with Saki, so meaning that we are completely aligned. Obviously, from a regulatory point of view, is one thing. To make it happen is a completely different story, no? And we are seeing also in some meeting that we are having. And for example, we are seeing very clear the SOC story, no? From the red tree, no? We are requesting. That is just I would say an appetizer from all the data that we need of V2G, and just on SOC to share it in an interoperable way. Still, we have a path to do, no? Because when the vehicle is connected, is fine. We can use the -20 or even -2 protocol. But if the vehicle is not connected and in V2G, you need the SOC in theory, but also to have a proper operational model. Also, when the vehicle is not connected, there is no standard to share this data. Still a long path. So for sure, I would say the policing is facilitating a lot the data sharing, but from a political point of view, then there is the make it happen story, no? That is still a long path. And what worries me sometimes is also that not all the things happen at the European level standards, no? There are sometimes country-based things that are make our complex, our job in terms of service provider, but also car manufacturer, a bit complex, no? Because if there is different rules for different country, also in terms of data, this even complicate even more, no? The story.
I guess we talk here about the need for the standardization and interoperability and all these standards in place, but then just to follow up on that, the question here is, in what role does standardization of V2G protocols and technology play in accelerating the implementation, and how is this also how is this need addressed in Europe? And to Saki here.
Yeah, I mean the principle is clear. So what we want to ensure is interoperability, and what does it mean, and with a concrete example and maybe a risk that we were seeing right now. When we talk about flexibility also, And when we talk about EVs as seeing more and more the value of having these assets connected the most time possible when they are not moving, right? So the perhaps a future vision means that when you are not driving an EV, if possible, should be connected, should be plugged in, and on that basis, the user and also the other market actors could benefit with the clear incentives, of course, in between of this decentralized asset, right? What is the risk we see about interoperability? That if you are driving your EV and on the weekend you go to your parents or to your relative's house, you cannot use the wallbox because this wallbox may be from another manufacturer or associated to another OEM, etc. So we create different fragmentation between products and vehicles, infrastructure, etc. So we see that it's very important to ensure that the recharging infrastructure manufactured today in terms of hardware and software, either if we talk about private or public, that is compatible, and is compatible in it from the outset in this case when we talk about the proper implementation of smart and bidirectional charging. So for that, we need to ensure that the communication between the vehicle and the infrastructure is interoperable and compatible. Doesn't matter what type of wallbox you will be using Mode 3 in the EU. And also that, of course, the backends of these softwares are harmonized to some extent, also to reduce costs and provide certainty to the market. So these, I believe, that are concrete real examples of interoperability, and we should avoid having proprietary solutions that could prevent this scale up.
You, Saki. I guess David then missed a follow-up question to that, but how does industry see the feasibility of enabling this interoperability or the software and the hardware aspects of this?
Well, obviously from V2G, very complex. We are seeing, very complex because there are still some pieces that need to be happen. Also in the Dash 20, there are still some amendments that need to be done, especially when we talk about AC bidirectional charging, that when we see most of the value, the future value, coming. And then there is the data story. For the data sharing, we need a interoperable standard. We need some communication protocol, industrial communication protocol that will enable this. Otherwise, we need to have for each car manufacturer group a communication channel. So for sure, is not scalable. It will be complex. So also here there is some ISO standard moving on, but it's still not live. The good news is, and this is why I'm seeing the future in a good way, is that in the e-mobility, we had the same problem at the beginning of the public charging, to make interoperable CPO between CPOs and MSPs. At the beginning, I remember it was a mess, Now is de facto a standard. There is even few problem happening, still problem, but very few. There is a CPI, majority of things happening on CPI protocol. There is roaming platform that enables small MSP to participate. So we have an interoperable system in terms of public charging. And at the beginning was not the case. So I expect that also in the future, maybe in 5 years, 6 years, let's see, we will have the same situation also V2G. So the customer will buy a charger, maybe, an EV, it connect on its charger, that is V2G, on the maybe utility mobile app, you can enroll the EV in a flexibility program, etc. So it's just a question of time and also again of value that we can extract, because if there are no concrete value that service provider can extract, there will be no one that will develop these services.
I think that's honestly a perfect segue to my next question here. Still on you, Davide, then. But then what do you expect are some of the key drivers for the V2G adoption for, not the customers and also businesses alike, then, and some factors that will determine whether V2G can reach widespread use outside of the early adopters, let's say?
Again, the ingredients are always the same. In terms of technology, I think that we need AC, bidirectional charging. No, is when we are a little bit not in delay, but in technology side we are still we need time because on DC bidirectional charging, that is where I see the industry more mature, also in terms of interoperable solution. I don't think that we can scale in the next year. Maybe, okay, heavy-duty vehicle, except, but the majority of passenger vehicle, we need AC, bidirectional charging. Still, we need a path to have. So for sure, this is something that we need. I would say all the industry is working on it. So we will arrive. And then again, the value. I don't want to stress the same element, but I still see in some of the European country not a good value in terms of services that we can enable. Situation change if you can start to stack services, okay? But also to stack is not so simple. And also if you think to stack explicit services, maybe they will not allow to do. For example, now DSO services versus TSO services. TSO and DSO will never like that you give no flexibility in the same time to two programs, to do entities. So this for sure will be a good ingredient to have in the future. Yes, more or less, I think that those are the two things to really scale fast.
Before coming back, I guess actually to ask this question now, because you mentioned the services, but then in terms of a commercial point of view, what types of services, V2G services or offerings is there currently or expected to be in the future?
Currently, maybe we talk a little bit at the beginning. No, what do we see? If I'm a EV driver, I want to buy a V2G car, or I want to do something with V2G. The only things commercially available are two offers. No, one from Renault in France currently, publicly. Okay, so you can Google it. And there is a commercial pilot of Volkswagen in Sweden. In terms of vehicle-to-home application. So those are the two really commercial offer that we can do, and both of them are not interoperable. You need to buy the charger of Renault or the charger of the Volkswagen partner. So again, we said at the beginning, we are still at the beginning, no? I think it is commercial offer, but we can define also pilot, no? Because maybe they will not scale easily. Who knows? We will see. I think that to have a first commercial footprint, we need Dash 20 vehicle, meaning interoperable vehicle. This will help to develop the charger industry in terms of V2G, because also in terms of charger, there is not abundance in terms of V2G charger, no? Because also the charger manufacturers are not, I would say, investing now, meaning they are investing, but they are not releasing V2G charger, because who will buy it if there are no vehicles? These are the two commercial ingredients, and then we will see commercial offer. Maybe I expect at the beginning from majority from utility or from car manufacturer in, I would say, partnership with a utility, but obviously utility, not because I'm a utility, but it will be the first one that maybe can release easily offer, also because majority of the data needed are part of the utility aggregator space, and so it's more easy to develop at the beginning. So this is my bet for the short-term future.
Thank you, Davide. I think coming to you, Saki, a similar question from before, but what do you see as the key drivers for V2G adoption for consumers and businesses, and the factors as well that determine widespread use outside of or beyond the early adopters, and what services can be out there and tangible benefits for end users?
Yeah, I think just not to repeat myself a little bit the discussion, but I think at the end of the day, technology is unstoppable. So as soon as and the foundations and the fundamentals, talking economic terms of V2G as a technology, smart charging are there. Now it's a matter of time that indeed there will be a proper value proposition in the market and specific use cases that create clear incentives for end users, but also for businesses. And from that moment on, everything will take off. And as I said, it's a bit of a matter of time. Indeed, we are seeing now, as David was explaining, there will be more initial solutions resulting of a specific R&D projects based on proprietary solutions. Perhaps in a couple of years, with supporting legislations, we will have more interoperable solutions. Vehicles and infrastructure need to go hand in hand. This is absolutely a must in this case. And on that basis, we believe that with the strong fundamentals, again, that the smart charging and the benefits to the whole energy system, it will occur. There is no other choice. But perhaps just to qualify one point and a little bit to express the complexity of this situation and some of the concerns that we have also as the regulator in order to make this happen in a straightforward manner is the case that David was mentioning about the AC bidirectional charging, right? Because we talk about public, private, AC, DC, and indeed we have here a specialized audience. I don't need to explain what is the issue, but indeed, what is the cost for vehicle manufacturers to include vehicle onboard inverters to facilitate in a mainstream manner AC bidirectional charging, right? We see some OEMs that they are not in favor or they are not supportive of this measure because, of course, they need to bring down the cost of vehicles coming to the market. On the other side, do we think that it's realistic that all Mode 3 AC recharging boxes are equipped with these inverters? What is the associated cost? So indeed, that's of the things that we believe that we need to find. And once we have also that clear, we believe that everyone will scale up quickly. But these are a bit of bottlenecks that we need to solve now quickly.
Thank you, Saki. And I actually see that we have here a question in the chat from Adriana from Hubject. And I think it is for you, Saki, in this case. And the question is, how are regulatory developments at the EU level shaping energy market access and participation for bidirectional charging? And what potential do they unlock for aggregated services in wholesale and balancing markets?
Not an easy question. So, I mean, we have different pieces in place, right? I think here one key development, and we were talking a bit before about, is the electricity market design legislation, because I think here what we want to achieve is that to reinforce, right, the right of consumers and aggregators to access energy markets with flexibility services, including from EVs. And so here we need to ensure the mandate of non-discriminatory access for all resources, including a small-scale behind-the-meter devices to participate in the energy markets. We know that currently there is challenge. It's a big challenge, right, to some of these stakeholders, actors to participate in energy markets. This needs to be solved as well. And also in this direction, the Renewable Energy Directive, also we believe that it will recognize also with its implementation the demand side participation as an essential part for integrating renewables in the system. And as said, the fundamentals are there, and we believe that it is a little bit to implement it effectively and enable these systems. But with RED, the market design and also the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation we talked before, with the capability mandates, all these pieces together with some ingredients here and there in terms of taxation, in terms of technical interoperability, we should little by little put all together. But I don't believe that we need new instruments. We don't need big things, but we need to really adjust and refine what we have right now in place.
Thank you. I guess Davide, same question to you, but also, do you think we need new instruments?
I think that we don't. I agree with Saki. We don't need the new instruments, but we need to make current tools more appropriate a little bit. For example, no, Saki said, right, currently there is a technology agnosticity on the technology in terms of participation to ancillary services, for example. But then if you see country-based TSO programs, when you see the technical details, the technical requirement, de facto, you will never participate. The business case will never make it happen. I make a usual example. For example, TSO want to have a tertiary reserve program, no slow services, but then request you to install a 300, 400 or 1,000 euro device to control, to monitor real time the asset. So again, you are not blocking small asset to participate, but you are putting a cost barrier to enter in this market. So I think that this kind of piece we need to solve, and this is more, I would say, country-based things, maybe flexibility program-based things, that when they find the rules, they need to understand that small asset have different rules. Is distributed, sometimes is not both to do ancillary services. I buy an EV to move, then I can do flexibility. I think that this is the mindset in which TSO and DSO need to they need to digest, to understand that if we want to have demand-side flexibility in a proper way, we need to change a little bit mindset and open in that way.
Thank you. And I guess you mentioned the DSOs and the TSOs, and I have a question on the market for local flexibility services. Namely, how can the market for local flexibility services be expanded to better accommodate V2G, considering the existing infrastructure limitations and the need for a coordinated system operation across the DSOs and the TSOs? And to Davide first.
It depends, DSO flexibility is very locational. So they need, in the way the DSO grids is built, they need flexibility in a specific point. So all the story about aggregation, virtual power plant, you need a lot of liquidity, to arrive to some sort of capacity that makes sense from the DSO. While maybe DSO make more sense to have, I would say, similar flexibility connection agreement, that makes more sense in a DSO mindset in the current state of grids and the current state of liquidity of the demand side flexibility. In terms of TSO is enough. Normally, a majority of services have a good geographical scale that you can aggregate the resource. And you also mentioned on the question, there is a huge debate between TSO and DSO, not only to not interface between each others, in terms of energy flows, constraints of the grids, but also I would say in terms of who is the piece of pie, at the end of this, historically, TSO manage ancillary services, but the reality is that those resources are connected on low and medium grids that normally is managed by the DSO. So there is, and Saki in DGN, a lot of discussion between TSO and DSO coordination. You can call coordination because they like to go in that way. And this obviously is not helping us in terms of V2G flexibility, demand side flexibility to open services, because those conversations are very long, require times, etc. Sometimes also require to change regulation,
I think you've had a great segue there to Saki. What insights can you give us on this?
Well, this is another hot question that hits at the heart of the major design of this smart V2G technology. So the question is, should we prioritize market-based coordination of flexibility through price signals, aggregators, or give grid operators limited, as Sergio mentions, limited direct control over flexibility assets? And my question is, what does limited means here? To ensure right system stability, renewable integration, and so on. So, I mean, I think the commission line here, and I think my personal line, and many of you, is here that the answer is not either or, but some sort of hybrid approach, right? And I believe that flexibility markets should and must be the backbone, focus oriented towards the end consumer based on incentives. That's a bit clear, more liberal thinking, but I think that should be the market-driven approach. But it is true that we need some degree of operator control, and this should be a complementary safeguard in certain specific conditions to ensure, for example, certain frequency drops that could happen in the grid, but other emergency events and other operational issues, which I'm not expert on, but from the energy side, I think they are very clear and very well argumented. So just to keep it short, I think we will have some sort of hybrid solution, but I see a big tendency, and we need to build trust on the market driving approach. So we need to facilitate to keep also these safeguards to ensure that we have a fallback mode and the operators can have control where the situations require so. So as said, I think the in between, the middle point will be the most likely X scenario in this case. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Serge in the chat for the question. But I guess you touched upon the importance of the grid codes previously in the connection codes. But a lot of the conversation right now, and knowing that the grid codes are in the process of being updated, let's say, a lot of the conversation really stems around the need for the vehicle homologation and certification. But how is that something, or some of the conversation does stem about that and the frequency accuracy, but how is that something that industry sees, and the importance of assuring the interoperability and the connections between grid codes and the vehicle side to ensure the effective use of V2G? Then to David on this first.
I know I mentioned the grid code amendment at the beginning. No, is one of the key points. Also practical, no, because at the end the grid codes arrive to paper to fill when you need to connection when you want to connection V2G charger. So it will be very practical. I know different conversations. I'm also inside CharIN about this. I'm still I have my position in terms of grid code. So I think that we need to simplify at the beginning. No, those technologies are at the early stage. Thinking that the vehicle need to be certified country by country, or maybe DSO by DSO, will never happen. No, we will only put the car manufacturing industry in a big problem, blocking V2G or blocking those kind of services. So we have a simpler rule. Maybe the majority of constraints and rules need to be fulfilled by the charger or by other equipment connected to the charger. In Italy, for example, V2G seems that the Italian energy authorities is requesting simple things similar to PV and inverter device. So it will be a simple device to be on top of the charger, not so expensive. So again, grid code will be very massively. In some case, I see strange things in the grid codes and different industry commented in that way. Let's see. I think that again, the vehicle can be not the one that need to fulfill all the rules, because we'll only over complex. Also because remember that the grid codes is at European level. Then this is these arrive each country based, then each country based regulate this, and then each DSO make its own I would say processes and operational processes to request the connection to allow for V2G to be connected. And this is where a majority is worried. No, if you see Germany, how many DSO are in Germany? So that's the practical problem is that at European level we are defining the grid codes goods, but then what will happen when we will arrive to member states? This is what, from a business point of view, worry me, no? Because who knows? We're still a long path.
Thank you. And I think, Saki, it's a follow-up question to that, but more so geared for you. It's what, is there a view to help simplify this or help not harmonize it necessarily, but streamline the process, the procedure, let's say?
It's a difficult question. I mean, I try to focus on concrete examples now, and we were talking now also, and we start our starting point is that EVs, when they do V2 use case before, these EVs become generating units, electric generating units, that should be in principle subject to the same grid code requirements. So these inverters should be subject to European grid connection codes. That, of course, these inverters are part of the vehicle, so the OEM should be the first responsible stakeholder to fulfill that. Now, how do we streamline that? To be honest, it's difficult. I don't know what would be the solution, but indeed we need to find some sort of balance approach where these key technical elements that are needed are not jeopardized and don't become isolated of the equation. So we need to think, and I mean, I think this is right now the context of the discussions between experts and the DGNR of the grid codes. I'm convinced that they will find out a solution, but indeed, it's a key topic. I don't have the answer, unfortunately, but I'm convinced that they will find out a way out, but because it's certainly needed.
Yeah. Thank you. But then maybe to move back a little bit towards real world examples, and I guess the question is, I think for both Yusaki and David in this case, but how can we use regulatory sandboxes to better test the V2G operations in the real world and environment across the member states? And I think to Davide first, and then we'll go to Yusaki.
Yeah, this is also an hot topics, no? Regulatory sandbox on V2G that I heard in different locations, different associations. I think that can be a solution, but it's still a temporary solution. So I think that again we need to arrive as soon as possible at the V2G scale point, no? When I would say majority of the industry understood the value, are betting on it, and delivering offer and are scaling on it. I think so. My worry is that having a regulatory sandbox can only be another phase toward taking some decision, and so I'm a little bit worried about the sandboxes in terms of regulatory. Okay, just because timing, normally regulatory stuff things are slow because obviously it's complex. Putting a sandbox will even add another step, and so I'm skeptical on this, to be completely honest. I heard that in Germany they want to start something in that way. Okay, especially because I said this Germany before. No, Germany have a complex DSO situation. Where we have thousands of DSO. So obviously having a sandbox will start easily, because otherwise they will never arrive. Let's see. To recap, I don't have a precise position, so I think that can slow a little bit the process to make the things happen.
Thank you, Davide. But I guess Saki, what's your view on the regulatory sandboxes for real world testing?
Yeah, that's. I think it's a very interesting question, and also complementing what David said, because we saw that there is different perceptions of what a regulatory sandbox makes and what added value could bring. No, so I think the initial conception of a regulatory sandbox is what David explained. So it's an intermediate step after perhaps research, where you want to scale up something and learn lessons that later you may bring or help you address barriers that you have in legislation, etc. I think that now, and the conception is changing a little bit, and I believe this is the intention of the Commission, and you saw that in the recent automotive action plan. In it is mentioned the idea of setting up regulatory sandboxes for V2G. I think here the concept, which is also very much linked to the regulatory sandboxes that are also in the automotive action plan for automated vehicles, self-driving cars. So I think now the concept is shifting a little bit. It's not so much of having an additional step, which to some extent de facto it is, but to create safe environments where we can lift up all the legislation regulations that we have that prevent de facto also to implement these solutions. So we create a safe environment with some boundary conditions, and let's see what happens there, and potentially could be also scale up. So I think this is more the intention. The same we will see for self-driving cars. I mean, typically today it's very complicated to put in the road any sort of these cars due to the existing legislation, of course, safety rules that we need to comply with, but we have create safety environments for this to scale up and to grow. I think that could be a solution. So I think this is changing a little bit. We will see how it will be implemented. In fact, these regulatory sandboxes for V2G, but I think the thinking is indeed trying to shift from the previous conception to something that will help us also to move the market. Yeah.
I have a question to Saki, because Saki, I heard this on the automotive action plan. So what do you expect in practical will happen in terms of regulatory sandbox? You expect that in terms of commission, you will issue some regulation, something that will automatically enable service provider to do something on V2G, or you think you will mandate this to the member state to build this, and then each member state with all the DSO, TSO, we start to design this. So how you think that will happen practically this?
Yeah, well, that's currently under discussion. I think we don't have yet a decision on that. We will see what is going to happen, and decide at the political level. But what I can say is that we provide funding possibilities, but also what is very important, to identify concrete areas, regions in member states where we could develop these environments and leaving up existing rules or existing regulations that are preventing that happens. And just to put an example, you for sure heard 1 year ago, and I don't know what is the state of the project, but in Utrecht, in the Netherlands, they proposed this sort of project where they wanted, in order to scale up V2G, to ensure that businesses and etc. So that implied that the Utrecht region, city, etc., they apply specific rules. So I think that's now more the question, right? We want to talk with member states, with regions, where this could happen. So where we could create a safe environment where operators, car manufacturers, also with some implicit local regulations, could help us this scale up. Of course, support it also with relevant funding where and if needed. So I think this is more a discussion, and indeed not to create something that is going to be forgotten, but something that we could move and help in concrete scenarios. So I think that's a bit the idea, but as I said, let's see what it happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saki. And I guess moving or looking towards the future a little bit, but what do we see here, or what would a truly V2G compatible regulatory environment look like by maybe 2030, or what concrete policy decisions really need to be made now to set this path into motion? And let me ask Davide this question first, and then follow up on Saki's opinion on it.
So 2030. So I think that for sure Dash 20 and bidirectional need to be mandatory on the vehicle. For me, both low duty and medium duty and heavy duty vehicle. So this for sure one thing that I think that in 2030 we can reach if as industry we work together. Second is again the data. So I think that in 2030 we will have those data, maybe not so, I would say, standardized, not so mature in terms of interoperability standardization, but there will be a way to exchange this data easily and in automatic way. Okay, and I think that on that path, industry is working good, no, pushed by the Commission on the Sustainable Transport Forum, etc., and the other tables. So for sure, these are the two. And then where I have a little bit of doubts is on the market value. So I didn't expect that in all the European country we will have a good enough value to make vehicle to grid. I would say a real business in terms of money in 2030, but in some country for sure, yes. Nordics are advanced. See also UK that is not European anymore, but it's still an important country in terms of energy. So it's a country where all the other countries look at it. But in some, for example, Italy, Spain, Germany, France, for sure, I think that will be a country where we will see V2G up and running with good amount capacity in terms of flexibility and service provider that will also compete on that. Okay, so I think that 2030 is something feasible for those countries.
And Saki, the view for the regulatory environment for V2G compatibility?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's very difficult to foresee where we will exactly be, but 5 years is a lot of time, and perhaps at least for us here in the regulatory side, sometimes when we think, let's look what's going to happen in 5 years, sometimes it's interesting to do the exercise. Let's look back 5 years where we were in 2020. So in 2020 we were still having discussions about battery electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles. Even we were talking whether electrification is going to be a reality. So I think that in 5 years there is a lot of arguments to be positive. I also concur with that. We will have clear, I mean, front runners like Netherlands, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, that they will have clear value propositions, clear commercial schemes. And also in this case will depend a lot also on the concrete specificities of regions, of member states, but I'm confident that it will be implemented. Implementation will go forward, and we will be talking about next things. And as I said before, for us, I think an interesting concept is that the fact that more and more we will be seeing how also the battery technology evolves, what are the technical capabilities of batteries, also for smart charging and V2G. And more we will develop the concept possibly of when a vehicle is not, we are not driving an EV, it should be all the time connected, not just stop, but connected. And I think we will little by little move towards this concept and ensure that all the fleet is fully an asset, a decentralized asset. But we will see what happens. But as I said, I think there is room to be positive.
Thank you. And I have one and a half final questions, let's say, but it's, CharIN with a unique position having a global audience here, but then is the V2G European model exportable? And what are some key lessons for the countries looking to implement it? And sorry, for Davide first.
I don't think that we can talk now about V2G, model. Maybe a little bit premature to talk about this, but for sure, especially in terms of regulation, Commission put a lot of, I would say, visibility, on V2G in general in the smart charging, in different regulation. So that for sure, Europe is a little bit, I would say in advance compared to other countries. Also, if we don't have a lot of widespread example, but in terms of regulation, we put a lot of effort as Europe to bring this happen, or to at least to facilitate this to happen. For sure, we have some learnings on some pilots that happen in Europe. that we take in consideration as Europe, no? And where we put the emphasis and in terms of problem to solve, no? And so maybe other country can look to or other region can look to Europe also, knowing bad example, no, to avoid to repeat the same problem. No, for example, double taxation is one that we talked about before. Common rules about the grid connection, no? Maybe so if I'm in the shoes of an account that want to start V2G, to facilitate the V2G in the country, there are already some ingredients with some, I would say, things that can facilitate the data again, no? That for sure is something that we in Europe put a lot of importance, no? And we are facilitating. I don't see maybe Saki can have a more broader view, but I don't see other regions that are putting so much importance on the data, on the security of this data, or the fact that need to be interoperable. See also, the Data Act, for example. So again, so I think that we put a lot of ingredients to make the things easier for the service provider, but not all the ingredients. So for sure, in terms of regulation, I think that Europe is the one that facilitate a lot of this.
And I think it's the same question for Saki, and maybe not the European V2G model, but the European approach to V2G.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, some or many of the organizations that are part of the discussions to execute materialize V2G in Europe are of course also global companies, and they have a lot of synergies with other regions. So on this front, I mean, I think whatever will be done in Europe, it will be very much aligned also with other developed regions. Having said that, indeed, as David said, I think we have a very clear foundations now. There is a strong support, and also because at the end of the day, also due to geopolitical circumstances with the war in Ukraine and what also our energy system has been going through, it also pointed out the need also for us to increase the capacity, the resilience, the need to digitalize and increase the interconnections and the overall connectivity of our grid, and that also where the smart and V2G are a solution that we need to effectively materialize. So I think that's a little bit the summary. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're quickly coming to an end of today's session, maybe even a little over. But just before concluding, I would like to ask both of you for any quick key or your concluding remarks and one key takeaway just to leave with our audience at home. And Saki first.
Yeah, so from my side, maybe coming back to the beginning, as said, I think there is room to be optimistic. The fundamentals of this technology, smart charging and concrete use cases like V2G are very strong. They really have all the elements to become, as you point out in the title of this session, a success story, a success case. And it just needs to happen now. We have a very solid, I believe, regulatory framework in Europe that it will be qualified, refined in the next years with implementation, but nothing big is needed. I need for us, our focus now is to close the gaps in terms of technical interoperability with implementation of standards, and also helping the industry and also us as policymakers to find this common understanding on the definition of use cases. And based on that, just scale up either with regulatory sandbox or any other means we can, just scale up this business case and help that everything occurs there.
Thank you. And Davide, one key takeaway from your side?
Yeah, meaning the Saki one plus. So obviously, Saki, I completely agree on what Saki said. I will put I want to close putting the emphasis on the market value. We need incentive, we need tools to make this happening commercially, not only on pilot. So we are unlocking a lot of things in terms of regulatories. from a technology enablement side, but then we need also the same effort as Europe to allow at the end a good remuneration path from this flexibility. I think this, and second remarks is I think that now we need to move the emphasis especially in terms of regulation. So in terms of heavy duty vehicle, I think that still there will be a huge potential in terms of flexibility, and will help a lot to decarbonize. And also because now when we talk about the heavy duty vehicle is a B2B story, when the TCO is the only driver for the electrification. So having also V2G value will help to electrify also this part of the transport sector.
Well, thank you, Saki and Davide, for your insights today. Just please bear with me for the next 30-40 seconds as we close out today's session. Let us just look ahead towards part 3 of our Tech and Policy Triplet. Next week is our season finale, where we will explore the tech and EU regulation policy of plug-in charge from AFIR to ISO 15118 to PKI, looking at the different various elements that of the technology and other industry incentives to facilitate plug-in charge. That is on the agenda for next week. We already have 2 confirmed speakers, just a little teaser for that, but please, you can register on CharIN's website. And once again, a big thank you to Saki and Davide for joining today's panel, and a big thank you to our listeners around the world. Bye for now, and until next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.